Philippine political culture and governance. Introduction. Some say the uprising was a class war that drew its power from class divide in society, with the arrest of the masses idol Erap Estrada as the spark that spread the wildfire. Defining Filipino political culture. Politics involves the production, allocation, and use of decision-making powers among large groups of individuals. Culture refers to everything socially created, includes subjective and objective elements. Subjective covers things. Objective cultural elements include material symbols, artifacts, and group accepted practices. Filipino political culture is a systematically related set of mental and concrete constructions. Pre-campaign or informal campaign period. People enter politics with different motivations, some on their own volition and some at the prodding of others. Some politicians see public service as their personal cause while others are pushed into it reluctantly. Once a candidate has decided to run, the informal campaign begins. This can start years before an election for a first-time politician. For a re-electionist, it covers the whole governance period starting from day one of elected office. The major practices during the pre-campaign period are being visible, accessible, and available to the people, and strengthening one's political base, planning, organizing, and raising money, and forging alliances or joining political groups. These activities may occur simultaneously and are deemed necessary for an electoral victory. Launching, filing of candidacy. The actual or formal campaign period starts the day the candidate formally announces she or he is running for public office and files one certificate of candidacy. As of this writing, the formal campaign period usually starts 60 days before elections for national posts and 45 days for local positions. Candidates running for national posts register their candidacy at the Commission on Elections National Office. The filing of candidacy at the COMELEC can be carried out as a star supporters and even hired at the Atihan performers dancing to adrenaline-pumping drum beats. Formal campaign period. Candidates may use rallies to be seen and heard by voters and to sense their political strength in various localities. The candidate has to learn to deliver a speech on stage that can rake in the votes. Not surprisingly, campaign speeches are characterized by many promises. Aside from rallies, candidates employ barangay to barangay, house to house, person to person, and market to market campaigning. An electoral victor narrated going to 467 barangays in 45 days, leaving the house at 7 in the morning and returning late at night. A candidate's supporters can go from one barangay to another, playing the candidate's jingle or song advertisement and asking for people's votes. Other campaign paraphernalia include leaflets, posters, calendars, stickers, flyers, and t-shirts. In addition, media is extensively used through radio and TV appearances or commercials as well as print advertisements. Election Day. The fourth stage of the electoral campaign is V-Day or election or voting day, the most important day in the whole electoral process. Tension runs high and everyone is busy persuading people to vote for his or her candidate. The streets are littered with leaflets and sample ballots. Vote buying is rampant in some areas and stories of election fraud and violence are common. Post-election period. The electoral process does not end with election day. The days and even weeks of ballot counting are factored in at the very beginning of planning for the whole electoral campaign. Most of the money spent for an electoral campaign goes to ballot watching. The post-election period covers the days of ballot counting until the electoral winner is declared. This period is marred by cases of election fraud and election violence. Political language. Members who share a culture possess a common language used to communicate among themselves. Filipino political culture likewise contains its own set of words and phrases that transmit electoral and governance meanings. Below is a list of some terms in Philippine political language and their corresponding meanings. First, dimpus, which means batang itinulak ng magulang sa politika, or children who were pushed by their parents into politics. Second, neophyte means first-time politician. Third, command votes which means votes captured through established political leaders dependent on one political leader who promises to deliver votes from a specific geographical area. Fourth, retail command votes means captures a small amount or a limited number of votes, only hundreds of votes coming from an NGO or cooperative in a specific municipality. Fifth, wholesale command votes captures a large amount of votes, tens of thousands of votes coming from a small town under a strong political leader. Last is free market votes, votes that are captured through media. Organizational infrastructure of election campaigns. Some elections are said to be won by having a well-oiled political machinery or organization. The size and complexity of the campaign machinery varies greatly from case to case. Factors include whether the candidate belongs to a political coalition, the strength and prominence of the political coalition, funding and other resources, the specific needs and requirements of the electoral campaign, and the political environment. For instance, the government or an administration coalition usually has the strongest political machinery and is often able to use government facilities and resources, although this is prohibited. Beliefs, expectations, and cognitions. What do politicians and their closest supporters believe and expect of the electoral contest? Are guns, goons, and gold truly necessary? What wins elections in the Philippines? The candidate and the core group have their own understanding of the electoral contest that determines how they conduct their campaign. Volunteers and voters are perceived to have implicit expectations from candidates. For their part, politicians think that their constituents have very specific demands of an elected public official that go beyond one's mandated duties and obligations. All these cultural expectations create external and internal pressures. The perceived demands of campaign volunteers, voters, colleges in government, campaign benefactors, coalition leaders, and the self inadvertently shape the practice of governance. The electoral contest. What the candidate and the core group believes. Some individuals believe that they can provide better government once elected by facilitating progress and development. They also believe in their own strength to win the election as number one in the electoral race. Along the campaign trail, their followers bolster their belief in victory at the polls. The belief is that majority of the people will not vote for you if you fail to deliver good services to individuals in the community. Volunteers and voters quid pro quo. According to research participants, volunteers say they are in the campaign to help and do not expect anything in return. However, politicians sense that those who give support, whether by assisting directly or by voting for the candidate, expect something in return. This is most true for persons who are really known to the candidate. Money, sweat, time, votes, anything that helps the candidate win has an expected return attached to it. Study participants believe that campaign volunteers do not really give their services for free. The campaigners expect monetary allowances, almost akin to a temporary job. During governance, expectation of volunteers and constituents, the patron. The politicians, family members, and staff in the study felt that the general expectation from an elected official during governance is not just to govern according to one's specific mandate, which is sometimes not even an expectation, but to be a patron. Regardless of the term of office, position, or status, one feels obliged to provide for one's constituents, to be kind of super person, problem solver, or a ninong or ninang. Professional pressures. Legislators feel the need to take care of so many people, their constituents, coalition mates, and bosses in government. An implicit pressure on a congressperson is to take care of all other elected officials under him or her. Essentially, this means giving money to one's mayors, barangay captains, and even one's governor. Elected political leaders in the research reported feeling that their campaign supporters and ordinary constituents think that an electoral post comes with plenty of money to give away. A legislator always has to be on guard because many others, from the president to media to ordinary townsfolk, seem to be watching every move. Internal tensions. With the elected position come responsibilities and obligations to the people. A large portion of the daily life of a politician belongs to the public at large. So much is expected from the public official that sometimes she or he has no time to attend to personal concerns. A politician narrated that when he goes home to the province every week, he barely has time to change clothes because people are already waiting in line for an audience with him. The great expectations are not just external but deeply internalized ones. Governance practices related to the electoral context. How a re-election bid affects governance style. A critical factor that affects the governance style of an electoral victor is whether one plans to run for re-election. For example, will say this or doing that make the politician look good come election time. From inside the halls of the power, good governance involves not only mandated performance indicators but also informal indicators that contribute to one's electoral victory. The fact that a politician plans to run for re-election affects the way one staff runs the political office. Decisions on whether to support certain resolutions, issues, or projects become partly dependent on the election plans. There is no explicit directive given. Instead, that reigns in the shared belief that re-election depends not solely on following one's mandate but on Filipino cultural indicators such as being visible in the community, being personally accessible to the people, and being able to serve as patron or ninong. Thus, the governance style that emerges is either re-electionist or non-re-electionist. Governance practices to prepare for the next election. Every day is campaign day. It is often said that the electoral campaign in the Philippines begins on the very first day after elections. Hindi nga hinihintay pang makaupo yung nanalo hindi pa tapos magmukmok yung natalo. Pero pagkatapos ng eleksyon ay umpisa uli ang pamumulitika. The staff without explicit instructions from the politician is more cautious. There is a greater tendency for the staff to be careful in every decision they make, in resolutions filed or written, given the possibility that this may displease certain people or groups and therefore affect votes in the next election. Internal arrangements. Because of pressure on the public official to accede to every personal request, internal arrangements are made with staff and external arrangements made with other government offices. Such arrangements make the politician look good by seemingly being able to grant requests. For example, a public official says she or he uses a code every time she or he writes to the district engineer. Ending with a sincerely means, please do everything you can about the favor this person is asking. And a very truly yours means, I leave it up to you if you can do something about it. People and projects. To prepare for the next election, campaign supporters and coordinators are taken care. Special attention is given to go between political leaders to maintain their loyalty to the politician. Various kinds of projects are implemented to increase the politician's visibility at a community level. After winning the election, the electionist begins the task of maintaining a hold on one's political leaders or what is called taking care of your people. Personalistic politics. Research participants point out that the striking characteristics of Philippine political culture is that it is highly personal. Filipino society is collectivist, family-oriented, and person-oriented. Filipinos value their personal relationships above all else. As such, Filipino politicians also handle politics in a very personalistic way. This personalistic orientation in government is manifested by how personal relationships often take precedence over political principles or issues of governance. Thus, family, relatives, friends, compadres, kababayans, padrinos, and other personal connection influence Filipino political practices. Understanding political and configurations requires factoring in sentiments, attachments, ties, and relations. The ties that bind. It is customary to vote for one's kamag-anak, kaibigan, kumpadre, kababayan, or even a mere kakilala. No matter how obscure the association, people usually vote for someone who is somehow connected to them. Analogously, a family member, relative, friend, or kababayan is first to be invited to run. People often ask their prominent kababayan to run for public office or even distant relatives of known political families. Thus, a person who can speak the local dialect has an advantage because it symbolizes one's culturally accepted connection with the people. Candidates often renew their ties with relatives, classmates, and old acquaintances to enhance their familiarity to the electorate. The personal approach to politics. Research participants believe that a good politician possesses the qualities of a good friend that is approachable, easy to find and talk to, and someone to turn to for problems. Lack of professionalism, personalan, and tampuhan. Political relationships in the Philippines are perceived to be too personal when a particular favor is not granted or a particular point of view is not supported. Perceived political utility of shame, hiya, and delicadeza. Research respondents claim that people in government can use the cultural character of hiya or shame. Hiya works best when a clean, efficient, and righteous person is placed in a leadership position. How pakikisama operates within the halls of power. Pakikisama implies that a politician tries to avoid being different so as not to risk ostracism. Utang na loob in the climb to power is a cultural experience receives any kind of favor is personally indebted to that other person and is obligated to return the favor. The power of informal personal connections. Some research participants pointed out that power is channeled through personal relationships, connections, attachments, or bonds with persons of influence. By virtue of personal connections, a person with little or no authority feels entitled to be awarded special favors or special treatment. For example, traffic violators flash the calling card of a government, military, or police official as a symbol of personal connection with this authority figure. Machismo, government is still run largely by males and many political practices are male-centered. There are beliefs that male candidates are superior to female candidates or that a female is running. The opponent should also be a female. A culture of independence. An observation made by the politicians was that Filipinos tend to display a sense of dependency and helplessness, especially those in extreme poverty. As such, poor people are perceived to depend on a patron, politician who can provide temporary relief to their everyday struggle for subsistence. Politicians can stay in politics for a long time by making people continuously dependent on them. Advocating for a progressive new politics. Not all public servants have become engulfed in the traditional culture of patronage and personalistic politics. There are people in government who try to do their job and are sincere in their duty as public servants. Some have remained conscious while being immersed in the traditional system and have begun working with institutions that can help people help themselves. The priority of this new politics is to stop the culture of dependence, patronage politics to thrive. Instead, the key is to attack poverty, the root of the problem. It focuses on a system of governance that will not merely dole out money to a few but provide projects with massive impact or can benefit the majority of the people. Examples of progressive new politics. Go to the office. People were trained not to go to the politician's house and instead to the office. Every time people came to the politician's house, they were patiently told to proceed to the office with more complete facilities. Eventually, people learned not to go to the private house of the official. No solicitation. In one municipality, the mayor started a system of not allowing any form of solicitation. They explained to the people that there will be no solicitations because projects are being implemented that will impact more people. People then began to understand the importance of projects that benefited the majority. Absent congressperson. In one area, people kept on complaining why the congressperson was never around. Therefore, the congressperson started explaining to the people using radio and speaking in the local dialect that a congressperson's work requires him or her to be in Congress so the people can have projects like roads for the greater good. In another case, the politician tried to explain to the people that projects that affect the majority are more important. Eventually, constituents demanded fewer dole-outs because they understood the work being done by the politician. Chances for change. In one election, a non-traditional political leader had no money and won. This revolutionized the political system and encouraged young and committed political leaders. The political monopoly of a handful of political families was broken. Development through unity. In one province, the leaders tried to promote development through unity. This was done by creating a vision of government and introducing globally competitive and quality education. Last is ask the people. In one province, the political leader began by asking people about their vision for the province. How do you see the province? How do you fit in as an employee? How do you see the role of the agency or the office in attaining your vision for the province? They then made the vision for the province and mission statements for the different offices and the provincial government. They started defining their goals, targets, and functions. The organization of the local government was overwhelmed. This chapter discussed the results of a study on how men and women within the corridors of Philippine political power viewed their world. The research used in-depth interviews and focus group discussion of individuals and groups in politics. The value of this study lies in its presentation of views from inside. Direct cuts allowed public officials an opportunity to speak in their own words. And that's all. Thank you.